Hello everyone and welcome to the podcast. I'm Justin and this is Brody. So today our main topic is the Olympic Games. Now, in recent years there have been a lot of critics arguing that the cost of hosting the Olympics has become so great that only rich countries can afford to bid on them, and that the Games themselves often have negative economic and social impact on the countries they're in. Do you think this criticism is fair, Brody?
Yeah, I do, honestly. And a 2016 study done by Oxford University showed that since 1960, the cost of hosting Olympic Games has consistently gone up. So the past Olympics, most recently, have been $50 billion for Sochi in 2014, $14.6 billion for London in 2012, and $43 billion for Beijing in 2008. So only two countries bid on the 2022 Winter Games, which were China and Kazakhstan. And the bid eventually goes to China. So in an article discussing the numerous impacts of hosting the Olympics, it lists numerous positive and negative economic and social impacts. Some of the positive economic impacts are it creates an increase in economic activities through tourism and trade. It creates jobs for people and helps increase the living standard of residents in the host city through the addition and refurbishing of non-event related infrastructures such as public transportation, water and energy supplies, parks, tourist attractions, and even airports. So some of the positive social impacts of hosting the Olympics is it allows not just the host city, but the host nation to express their culture to the world. So the Olympics have an effect of bringing the city's community together. They increase the local participation and interest associated with the event. And it helps increase the host community capacities and its ability to organize, plan, and implement projects. And importantly, uses the Olympic message and values among youth in the sport. So this can be seen in the upcoming Olympics in Tokyo in 2020, as one of their main focuses is to engage their youth generation through youth-focused sports that include baseball, skateboarding, sport climbing, surfing, and karate. So just easy sports for kids to play and learn.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's great. And then when it comes to actually hosting the games and you look at some of the negative impacts, you look at how expensive it is to host, how expensive it is to bid. Mm-hmm. You look at the increase in taxes that people are going to see. And so when you look at that, and then you look at some of the other social impacts, a really great example of that would be the 2016 Olympics that were in Rio, right? And you had the government spending billions of dollars to build these, brand new stadiums and to bid on this event. At the same time, though, they also had to displace over 60,000 people from their homes, either with force or with threats, which is just insane to think about. And now they're basically left with, now that the games are done, they have these multi-million-dollar facilities essentially just rotting away.
Yep.
And so actually we have some footage we'd like to show you guys, courtesy of Business Insider, taking a look at what the facilities looked like 1 year after. One of the alternatives a lot of people have suggested is hosting the Winter and Summer Olympics in the same city each year. Do you see this as a realistic possibility?
I do. I think it's absolutely a possibility. It would definitely help to prevent from spending billions of dollars on different infrastructure in all kinds of Olympic cities. And it would prevent building new infrastructure every time you have a different Olympics, right? We could create a permanent Olympic city or cities with facilities and housing. athletes could use these facilities to practice even when games are not ongoing. So these facilities would obviously be used year round because they're Olympic standard facilities. Everybody would want to use them. And the IOC could fund this project and then be profitable off of the future Olympic Games and use of the facilities for as long as they're functioning. The IOC would not have to share the profits if they fully fund it. However, it's unlikely that the IOC would want a permanent site because that is where they get their leverage. They have a bidding system, right? So cities bid to host the games, and most of the time, if not all the time, they way overbid to secure the games because they want them to come to their country. And that's where the IOC makes a lot of its money. So it's unlikely they'd be willing to give that profit up because it's really easy for them. There's so many abandoned Olympic venues around the world. Why not create these facilities which can be used over and over again for Olympics year after year? Thus being there would be no abandoned venues.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of positives to it. I think there's also some fairly significant drawbacks as well. When you look at the Olympics, a lot of the revenue that's generated comes from tourism, people visiting these countries. So, when you're going to watch the Olympics, you're not just going to watch these athletes, you're going to experience these cultures and these places. And I think you lose that when you only host it in one place. And so, for me, I think, maybe that isn't the solution, right? And then when you also look at other factors like, for example, companies sponsoring the events, if you're a sponsor, part of the big draw to being an Olympic sponsor is you get to have this, major impact in spreading your brand in these, different places across the globe. And when you have it in one place, you don't necessarily have that to the same extent. Yes, you still have these television ads that people are watching worldwide, but all the stuff that they do in the countries themselves, I think you lose that. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, right?
Exactly.
And so, in saying that, the way it's set up right now, it clearly isn't working with the Olympics. And at the same time, having it in the same place every year has its drawbacks as well. So in your opinion, what do you think is the best alternative for the Olympics?
So I think the best option is neither having it in one place or doing the current system. I think it's a combination of both. I think they both have to work together to be successful. So what I mean by this is that there could be a set number of host cities who have the infrastructure permanently in place to host the Olympic Games, so summer or winter, and we could just rotate between these host cities every year. So we could have 2 or 3 cities for summer, 2 or 3 cities for winter that are able to host the games, and so each city would receive Olympic Games every 8 to 12 years depending on how many cities there is, so that it's not completely repetitive for the fans who are coming to watch the games and experience the culture of the host city, right? Also, by doing this is the way these cities can be huge hubs for Olympic athletes to train in even when the Olympics aren't ongoing. So they'll always have the infrastructure and top of the line facilities that some younger athletes and those from poorer countries might not have access to back home, but they could have access to in these places. So the IOC might not be keen on eliminating the bidding process, as we said before. A big part of the profits comes from the bidding process. They receive a lot of money from that. They would be pleased, however, with the fact that once they help these cities build this infrastructure, they would still get a large piece of the pie every time they're used for training or for the Olympic Games, because they're helping to fund them, right? So they're part owner of it, so they'd still receive a big profit from that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting alternative. I'm actually going to have to disagree with you on that, though. I think when you look at the way it's set up, I think there are 2 really big issues. The first being that the cost of bidding and hosting the Olympics is too high, and the second being that you don't have enough countries bidding for these games.
Exactly.
So, in my opinion, the way I would approach it is having the IOC maybe spend a bit more money to alleviate that financial burden from countries. The IOC between 2010 and 2012, they brought in over $8 billion, yet in terms of financial aid to host countries, that number is usually around $1 billion, maybe even less. So if you alleviate that burden, you contribute more money, you're going to get countries that say, it's less of a risk for us, maybe we'll bid on the games now. And so instead of having only 2 countries bid, like you saw with China and Kazakhstan, you'll have multiple, and that way you're not stuck with essentially picking the best of 2 really not great options. You're going to have this variety, and you're going to have this competition. You're going to get some really great host cities. That being said, I think it's also really important that the IOC makes their application process more strict. I think
Definitely.
when you look at Rio, I think I don't think that should have ever been chosen as a host city based on the amount of poverty there and the amount of issues they have politically. It wasn't stable. So I think if you add more strict minimum requirements, I think you're going to see that kind of go away.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the reasons we're talking about the Olympics is that Canada and the city of Calgary have put an initial bid for the 2026 Winter Olympics. And actually, this evening, the city of Calgary is having a citywide vote on whether or not to move forward with the bidding process. And so we have a short clip of that.
Do you want Calgary to host the 2026 Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games?
Not even the most hardcore opponents of hosting will tell you that Calgary won't host an amazing games.
We are the only city, the only one with full government and taxpayer support.
We have the facilities.
We will upgrade 8 of them for the games and get 2 new ones.
We have the community drive and spirit.
Over 4,000 of you have already signed up to volunteer.
We are the city to transform the Olympic movement.
In 1988, we hosted the best organized Winter Olympics in history. We can shape the Olympic movement to a whole new standard.
We know we can.
We know we will.
And the benefits for hosting these games are clear.
We upgrade our facilities for the next 40 years.
We provide opportunity and create inspiration for the future generations.
We boost the local economy.
We tell a new story about Calgary.
We create a historic amount of affordable housing.
And we do it all with a heck of a financial deal for Calgary.
This is Calgary's time to shine.
And unlike every other bid in history, we have minimized the risk.
So ask yourself, do you want to renew our legacy as a Winter Olympic city?
On Tuesday, November 13th, vote yes.
So going into the vote today, it was projected to be extremely close, around a 50-50 split. And so being from Calgary and having grown up there, I actually contacted some of the people I know just to get their opinions. And the feedback I did get was mixed. I had a lot of people saying that they thought it'd be great for the city. It allowed them to upgrade some of the facilities that they have. It would create a lot of jobs and housing through the construction process. But then I also had people saying, they were concerned. They thought the economic impact wasn't worth it. It was going to be too expensive, and they didn't think there was enough information out there for them to really go ahead and say, yeah, this is something I want. So with all of that, do you think it's a good idea for Calgary to host the 2026?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because they have all the facilities that can just be refurbished to meet the IOC's requirements, right? So because they hosted the games before in 1988, and they don't have that cost of adding new facilities. They would just have to refurbish theirs to make them up to the standards. So like in Sochi in 2014, they spent $8.5 billion just building the infrastructure. And in Calgary, that would be nowhere near that number because they don't have to build all of these stadiums and things. So similar to Tokyo, Calgary has previously hosted an Olympics. Like I said, in 1988, they hosted one. And Tokyo, a reason why they got the 2020 Olympics was because they had the infrastructure from 1964. They had more than 20 venues still operational, and that they just have to modernize and refurbish. So Calgary should have no problem revamping and modernizing their venues if theirs are 20 years newer than Tokyo ones. They would already be in better shape, and they just have to spice them up a little bit, make them a little bit better. So from the first video earlier in the podcast, it was stated that Calgary had around 4,000 volunteers already signed up to help with the Olympics for games that is about 8 years away.
Yeah, they don't even have it yet.
Yeah, that's crazy. So by the time we get to the Olympics, that number will just skyrocket. So that could also help with the support that Calgary needs from the citizens to be on the right track if their bid is to be successful.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that with the 1988 Olympics, all those facilities that they built, they're still in use.
Exactly.
Every day, and so that's really great to see, and I think it shows that Calgary can do this, and I think they probably should move forward the bidding process.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.